to generate electricity from Begas, and those boilers are coming from, majority of them are coming from India. So there are areas of cooperation. Solar energy, yes, India is far ahead. I attended a conference when I was Secretary Water and Power in Goa, and India is far ahead of us in solar energy, and I think there is another area of cooperation. Then I visited TERI also for a day. I was in their headquarters about the conservation techniques. TERI has done some good work on this, and we could benefit from that also. If there's no question, then let me thank all the presenter here, all the discussant here. The discussion was very illuminating, and I think the quality of the paper presented were of very high quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
There's a cup of tea waiting for all of you outside, and we will reassemble in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Or start the last session before the Foreign Secretary's talk, and this is a panel discussion which I presume will look at broad issues rather than going into any specific micro issues which we've been discussing since yesterday. We have roughly about 5 minutes per panelist, maybe 3, 4 or 5 points per person, and then we carry on and try to summarize. We start with Mr. Agdas Kazmi, former Joint Chief Economist, Planning Commission in Pakistan. He has a lot of experience as a Director of Tax Policy, Federal Board of Revenue. He has been economic consultant in charge of WTO wing, also responsible for the implementation of GATT WTO policy decisions. Mr. Kazmi is an economist. Mr. Kazmi.
Mr. Manoj Pant, worthy ladies and gentlemen, my privilege to be here this afternoon to discuss some of the issues related to normalizing trade between India and Pakistan, the way forward. Absorbing the inputs received hectically yesterday and today, all the issues can be put together under 5 basic fundamental categories. There are 5 perspectives under which we can discuss the entire gambit of the issues relating to Pakistan-India normalization of trade. The first perspective is that of historicity. The history then determines the future, so we have to look at what is the historical aspects of the trade between India and Pakistan. And because 1947 is the year when GATT 1947 came into being and Pakistan came into being. So within GATT 1947, the Article 24, Para 11, makes a specific mention about Pakistan-India's trade relationship. And that says that unless their relations come to a definitive solution, till that time they can have any type of trading relations. Now that particular phase, that is definitive basis, has been subject to semantic and legal discussion, and that has been one of the bases on which Pakistan has been continuously refusing granting of MFN status to India. But along with that, Article 20, which is general exceptions, and Article 21, which is the security exceptions, combining these 3 articles, Article 20, Article 21, and Article 24, Para 11, have helped Pakistan to refuse and sort of not grant MFN status to India. And that is the reason that Pakistan has not been taken to the WTO dispute settlement body any time the last 50 to 60 years. And even in the WTO, which came into being in in 1st January 95. So this is the first thing, that whereas Pakistan has been granted MFN status by India in 1996, and still Pakistan has refused, but there are some legal aspects. In the first trade policy review mechanism meeting at Geneva in February 95, when Pakistan's trade policy was reviewed, then India's High Commissioner, India's permanent representative there at Geneva, he raised the issue of the MFN status, but not on legal grounds. He asked that there will be benefits out of trade between the two neighboring countries. I, being a part of the delegation at that particular time and having some little knowledge about economics, I was asked to defend that particular position. So I took some of the arguments with respect to infant industry and symmetry of distribution of gains, etc., etc. And that was not, after my presentation there and answer, it was not further debated. Now, this is one aspect, that whereas India has granted Pakistan MFN, and still, in spite of that, we have to see that the trade balance of Pakistan throughout, in spite of the fact that we have not granted MFN status to India, Pakistan has not granted it, is in adverse, is negative. Therefore, you have to look into that. And now, because I'm talking about historical context, I think at the present stage when Pakistan's energy crisis and other issues and other constraints and some of the law and order situations as such, I was feeling, this is my personal feeling, that it's better to accept the advice of Juliet to Romeo when he was leaving her in the midnight, wisely and slow for the stumblet who run fast. So this is about the historicity about the aspect. Next is the perspective of symmetry. The symmetry, when I talk about symmetry, I mean what is the symmetrical distribution of cost and benefits. Looking at a much deeper sense, even incorporating the consumer surplus, which has been the mainstay of discussions here yesterday, and indeed the consumer will be benefit. Nobody has gone into the dynamics of production, how employment, how industry is going to be affected in Pakistan once you throw away the negative list containing 1209 items. Nobody has really talked about what will happen to the employment, what will happen, how the industry is going to make its adjustment. So a proper analysis on the production side, that is producer surplus, how it is going to be affected, is needed to supplement and to reach the final conclusion. So after the principle of symmetry, then we come down to the principle or the perspective of complementarity. In the report which is available outside, about the future, shaping the future, is really a great book published by STPI. There's a chapter about the non-tariff barriers. And 3 Indian economists have produced that particular article on non-tariff barriers. It claims that the complementarity index for India for exports to Pakistan is 50%. But Pakistan's complementarity index to Indian exports is only 20%. You can now derive your own sort of conclusions out of it, depending upon your mindset. But I being it's so difficult for me to wean out the propensity of being a bit of protectionist sort of thing, not a liberal free trader, so to say. I interpret as a one that Pakistan will be somewhat suffering out of this particular development once it is normalized, once the negative list is out, because if you look at the trade pattern, only 2 commodities of exports to India have a value of above 50 million. Whereas when you look at the imports from India, about 20 commodities are those whose value is above $50 million. And there's a huge the number of items which are importable from India are really large. Pakistan is few agricultural products, fruits and cement, and not much of diversified products. So you have to look into somebody who doing a lot of research, because here there's a good deal of research being shared, could focus on the employment aspect, about the distributional aspects, about the industrial development aspects. Now, the next principle is that of sustainability. And this has been discussed and has been referred to it by a number of participants over here. How long we will be able to sustain a free trade scenario in between Pakistan and India? Because I say this, because if one single bullet and one single soldier is killed on the border, it has certain leverages, it sets out a stimulus that shakes the entire 1,200 million people over here in India and 180 million people in Pakistan. It keeps them certainly, I mean, in upside down position, in distraction. What's going to happen next? How to sustain that? So this sustainability, stability, continuity, as Dr. Ishit was talking yesterday, are very important things to evolve certain framework which can ensure that. And connective to this last perspective is the social ecology perspective, which is much broader than the pure the economic cost benefit analysis. And that goes that unless, as Lewis Mumford said, that there is a billions and billions and trillions of galaxies in the universe, but it is the mind of man which is the center of universe, because it interprets the universe. It asks questions. It is overawed by the greatness of universe. It is the mindset which has to be changed. So, and that requires a lot of effort. The media. I mean, before yesterday, I was leaving away my semi-protectionist tendencies because there was a
Mr.
lot
Kazmi,
of...
30 seconds, please.
Just 1 minute, sir, concluding. And that's the reason today when I look at the media things, the other non-tariff issues, then my sort of neo-protectionism re-emerged. Lastly, sir, coming to the social ecology and the political economy aspects, I had 2 series of income, national income of India, starting from 1950 to, first series was up to 2004-5. And then I added all that. That was in 93-94 prices. I added that, and the total GNP of India came to be about 300 trillion rupees, Indian rupees. I applied just 3% of what I call it the expenditure on defense. That came into 7578, you know, and that becomes 140 billion rupees, Indian rupees per annum. Similarly, if you drive the series from 1950 to the current year at 2045 prices, which is also given in the latest survey, then the defense expenditure at the 2045 prices comes to be roughly about 200 billion Indian rupees. I wish, similarly in Pakistan, it started with 6% defense expenditure as a ratio of GDP, came down to 5 in 80s, then it came down to 4, then to 3. And now it is 2.4. We have spent huge amount of defense. And sir, permit me to just refer to Gandhiji, and this has been referred to by Jaswant Singh in his book on Jinnah. Gandhi has proposed as the last stage, when Jaswant Singh mentions, Gandhi mentions to Quaid-e-Azam that even though we are 2 brothers who are getting separated, but we should feel that we are living in the same house. You don't build a new house. What I mean is, Gandhi said that we should have defense and foreign affairs a common thing, and then we will have some better living, so to say. But this was not accepted. I think, I'm not sort of just saying this, if India and Pakistan can raise their level of consciousness and the mindset, as Lewis Mumford put it, then you can have such huge savings and lot of misery that is visible around in India and Pakistan. And millions of people who have died, they could have avoided that particular death. So what is needed now in the social perspective is some reawakening of thinking in which we can significantly, drastically reduce the defense expenditure and make social living possible, social welfare possible, and we can live a much happier life.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmi.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Naeem Anwar, save time, I won't read out. He has a huge biodata here in terms of work as a minister at the Pakistan High Commission, been the Ministry of Commerce, been Director Trade Defense Laws, experience in FTA negotiations, etc., etc., etc. Mr. Anwar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respectable Dr. Ijaz Nabi Sahab, one of the brilliant economists in Pakistan, we all have great regard and respect for him. My ex-Secretary Commerce, Zafar Mahmood Sahab, I have learnt a lot of things from Zafar Mahmood Sahab, and I hope he will always be my mentor in future. All the discussion on the stage. I am thankful to a career to offering me this opportunity. Way forward for India-Pakistan trade will be based on three fundamentals. And if we are clear on these three fundamentals, I think the way forward is very progressive and clear. Number one, we should have a strategy to avoid any derailment of bilateral commercial relations which have been derailing owing to different incidences on line of control or some other untoward incidences. If we agree that we will not let the bilateral arrangements, bilateral negotiations, bilateral commercial activities derailed, I think we will keep on moving forward. The second part is the market access issues, which both countries have done a lot of understandings and progress during last 2 years. And latest round of the two commerce ministers have added much more understandings to carry forward this process. And we have agreed that the issue is basically of market access. Both sides have agreed that this is the area where we need to work mutually with an understanding of helping each other and removing the trade barriers which need to be really addressed in literal spirit. And to the removal of these barriers, which are both tariff and non-tariff, we have made understanding that India will be removing these tariff barriers and will bring the soft or sensitive list down to 100 tariff lines, and then Pakistan has also agreed to a roadmap reducing their tariff lines to 100. And we have also agreed that both sides will move forward as per the roadmap agreed between the commerce secretaries. For non-tariff barriers, we have also agreed that there is a need to revisit the visa regime for the business community, because it was understood between the two commerce ministers that there is a barrier, non-tariff barrier due to this visa regime, which is not encouraging exchange of business community people to each other's country. And it is understood that if the business community has free movement coming to each other's country, there will be tremendous development of business and commercial activities. So there is need to address this part also. Then we also have understanding that the business people and delegations should keep on coming each other's countries and explore the complementarities to support each other's whatever potentials available. And we have also agreed that there is a need to have more understanding and agreement on bilateral basis for investments, which is another part, very important part. It was felt that despite the fact that India has allowed and Pakistan has also allowed bilateral investments, but the visa regime does Asian century, and South Asia has to play a very strong role in this Asian century. So for a long future and a larger picture, I think both India and Pakistan has to play a very important role, and we have to address all these barriers which have been reflected in different research documents and in events. So this understanding between commerce ministers have set a good direction forward, and I am hopeful that in near future this commercial activity between the two countries will be moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anwar. Next we have Mr. Ijaz Nabi, Country Director, International Growth Center, Pakistan. He's also been the Faculty of Economics at Lahore University of Management. So he has been a member of the Chief Minister of Punjab's Advisory Council, and policy research has been Country Director Pakistan Program, was also Dean of School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Law, and lots of other things. So, Mr. Nazi?
In short, he's retired. So he does lots of little things to fill his time. You know, when I was crossing over yesterday from Wagah, there was a very engaging young immigration officer on the Pakistan side, a woman. And she said to me, "Sir, ये क्या करने जा रहे हैं इंडिया?" मैंने कहा, "मैं कॉन्फ्रेंस पे जा रहा हूँ." सर, किस चीज़ पे कॉन्फ्रेंस है? मैंने कहा, "ये ट्रेड के खोलने के बारे में कॉन्फ्रेंस है." सर, ये इतने साल से बातें हो रही है, होता तो कुछ नहीं. And you know, I started to think about it, and I said, well, I've been asked to be on a session in which one can speak in terms of generalization. So what is it, what message do I want to convey? And let me sort of, I said, whatever I prepare, whatever I say here, I'll try and summarize to her on my way back. Basically, actually, a lot has happened. I got involved with this whole thing in 1996. It was Benazir's government. And she asked the Ministry of Commerce to do a study on liberalization of trade with India, and I was asked to lead the study. We completed the study, and her instincts were absolutely right. I don't think she had a formal training in economics, but her instinct on doing the report was basically, she said, "What's the need for doing the report? Let's just do it." And so it was a cabinet meeting, and somebody said, "But Prime Minister, India might dump its goods in Pakistan." And she said, "Well, if India wants to subsidize 140 million Pakistanis, I don't have a problem with that. Why do you?" So her instincts were right. And then she turned to me and she said, "Why should we do this study?" And I said, what somebody said earlier today, I think Manoj said earlier, I said, "Prime Minister, there will be gainers and losers, and you should know who the losers are, so you can compensate them somehow as you move forward." That she understood, that being a good politician. She said, "Do the study, you got, I don't know, 3 months to do it in, and you've got this budget to do it." So we did the study, and then I was sent to the chambers to send the message that, look, consumers are going to benefit enormously from liberalizing the trade, so let's just do it. And I was heckled. I was heckled at the chambers. It was a very unpopular idea in 1996. That has changed. That has changed. The chambers in Pakistan, by and large, are supportive of the idea. Pakistan Business Council, which represents the largest businessmen of the country, they are largely supportive of the idea. There are a few segments in industry where there are concerns, and those concerns can be addressed, not by saying we won't trade, but I believe that the concerns that they have, the solutions to their concerns are endogenous to the process.